Okay, I think I'm ready. Oh, that's right. You can move closer if you like.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
6 o'clock.
All right. Give me a second. Oh, no, not too far. Ooh. Good evening and welcome to the December 5, 2023 regular meeting of the Township Board of Meridian Township. Not used to a full room. And welcome to you all. Please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Gordon, could we have the roll call?
Supervisor Jackson.
Yeah, here.
Clerk Guthrie.
Here.
Treasurer DeShane.
Here.
Trustee Hendrickson.
Here.
Trustee Sunland.
Here.
Trustee Wilson.
Here.
Trustee Wazinski. 6 board members are present. Trustee Wazinski is absent.
Thank you. Tonight's item 4 is a presentation. We have one presentation, and this particular presentation is a recognition for Gaylord Mankowski, Santa's first responders. Mr. Hamill? I'm sorry. Chief Grillo, the other chief.
Oh, what's that? Oh, yeah. Hey, come on up, guys, rest of the board. So, thank you. I'll introduce who we have here. This is TJ Booms from the fire department. He is on our board for Santa's First Responders. And Gaylord Mankowski, retired from Meridian Township, currently works for the state of Michigan. He is the chairman of our board for Santa's First Responders. Okay. So I think we're here tonight, I guess, just to be recognized for the work that we've done. And I believe, I guess over the years, past 33 years, we have, I shouldn't say we, Gaylord has been the one that's been instrumental in it. TJ and I have been involved for the last 10 years or so, but provided a holiday party for kids in need in Meridian Township. What started as a very small party back in, well, I guess you guys do the math, the 1900s, if we will, that Gaylord was assigned to the trailer parks in Meridian Township as a community policing officer and recognized that a lot of these kids weren't going to get anything for Christmas. So he took it upon himself to reserve some space for a party and used his holiday check that he gets and bought presents for the kids. And as word grew about what Gaylord was doing, as word spread, donations started coming in, the party grew to the point where we were busting at the seams, had to use schools. So working with the schools to determine other kids that were also in need throughout the entire township. And it has grown into a extraordinarily impressive organization. It's a 501c3 organization that was formed, I believe it was 3 years ago. Does that sound right? 3 or 4 years ago, renamed as Santa's First Responders. And we've actually expanded our party not just to the kids in Meridian Township, but we now also go into the schools, into the hospital at Sparrow, onto the cancer unit. We provide them with a first responder parade outside, and then we go on the unit and deliver toys to the kids that honestly aren't going to be out of the hospital for the holidays. So, I was talking to Manager Walsh about it. And, he asked, is this something that's going to be real emotional? I said, oh, yeah. I mean, as police officers, you go in, you see these kids, they're tiny, and they some of them can't even get out of bed. And so having the opportunity to deliver these presents We have chiefs of police there. Santa comes along. I've actually got the Grinch coming this year as well. We've got some, Batman and Superman are coming onto the unit, and we'll be able to deliver toys. So along with that, there's Gaylord worked with a company that makes chemo chairs specifically for children. And he was able to get $50,000 worth of chemo chairs that are going to be introduced at Sparrow when we go to our party on the 21st there. So I'm very proud of the work that we've done as a organization. And honestly, Gaylord is the one who's been instrumental in what we've done. So.
So thank you all for your appreciation for the Santa's first responders, but I have a separate commemoration to make this evening. Whereas Gaylord Mankowski was born and raised in Gaylord, Michigan, and whereas his father served on the city council for 44 years, and has the Patrick Mankowski Elk Park named after him. And whereas after working for the Gaylord Police Department and the Kalkaska County Sheriff's Office, Gaylord began his career with Meridian Township on January the 8th, 1990. And whereas Gaylord became our first canine officer and was instrumental in developing the canine program, which continues to flourish today, and whereas he was also a member of the Special Response Team, the Bicycle Patrol Unit, and worked as a DARE officer in the Oklahoma School District, and whereas on May 31, 2014, Gaylord retired from the Meridian Township Police Department. Whereas 33 years ago, he was assigned to low-income areas as the community policing officer and recognized a good number of the children in these neighborhoods were going without during the holidays. And whereas using his own money, he rented space for a holiday party, bought toys for all the kids, and whereas, as word of Gaylord's generosity spread, others began to donate, and the party became an annual tradition that expanded to the schools and thousands of kids from all over Meridian Township. And whereas in 2020, Gaylord formed Santa's First Responders, a 501c3 charitable organization that continues the charitable work that he began over 30 years prior. And whereas in 2022, he recognized an opportunity to help kids who are admitted to the hospital during the holidays. And whereas Gaylord organized a parade of first responder vehicles outside of Sparrow Hospital, and presents were delivered to the ill children. Whereas he is well known throughout the community for the delicious pickles he sells at the Meridian Township Farmers Market. And whereas he is a leader without rank and continues to make a positive impact on the Meridian Township community. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Meridian Township Board of the Charter Township of Meridian, Ingham County, Michigan. We hereby officially name December 8, 2023 as Gaylord Mankowski Day in Meridian Township.
If I could just say a couple things. There's no I in team, but there is in believe. So I believe if we all work together, this is a community thing. If it wasn't for Rick, TJ, Ben Finney, Ken Finney, Barb Krause from MSU, and Diane from Hazlitt Schools, this wouldn't happen. This isn't me, this is us. These guys are amazing. Just a little tidbit, maybe I get Jack. My dad was on the city council for 44 years. He was a tenacious philanthropist. So when I called him, I said, hey, I got these kids that have nothing. I don't have enough money to buy them all toys. He says, give me a sec. So I can only imagine one day he went to Mary's Tavern in downtown Gaylord, held court with other Polish folks, and he would be the kind of guy that said, he's got kids, he's got help. They could be 3 hours away down in Okemos, get your wallets out. And if, he had a saying about the oysters. If you think about an oyster, it gets a piece of dirt in it, and it just toils and toils. He would tell this after drinking usually. But he said at the end of the day, some oysters create beautiful pearls. So his saying was, what could we do with our own piece of dirt or things that bother us? So we do this, and now we've taken on the second mission. We call it the Courageous Kids of Sparrow, but they're the cancer kids in there for long-term care. I went down to the pod unit, which is the daily care. Those kids are hurting too. So we got tons of stuff for all the kids. We'll hopefully have 300 kids on the 16th at Murphy School, another partner. So Olive Garden has donated the food for 10 to 15 years. So we have great community partners in our area, and that's why we live here, and thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you all very much. We now move to item 5 on our agenda, citizens address agenda items and non-agenda items. I have 2 green cards. The first one here is for Sean O'Brien.
Thank you, board members. Again, my name is Sean O'Brien. I live at 16948 Pine Hollow Drive, East Lansing, Michigan. And I'm here to comment on the rezoning for Park Lake Road. I happen to represent the two of the 3 brothers that own the property that are here tonight. And as I mentioned last year, or last week, or last time we were in front of it, must have been 2 weeks ago or so. They've owned this property for 30 years, and it's been zoned to accommodate, it's a split zone parcel, which makes it challenging. It's zoned for, as everybody knows, RD and RA. Some of the impediments to developing this site, we've been trying to find a developer for the property for years. It does have wetlands, it does have floodplain, it has a rail line going by it, which creates a higher setback requirement. The wetlands create a higher setback, and it's a challenging site. Redwood has done their homework. They know what's involved in developing this site. Their plan before you tonight presents a low-impact development that's single-story, in keeping, I believe, with the neighboring uses. Again, you've got commercial on one side, you've got multifamily and a railroad on the west, or on the east side, and you've got residential on the north and the east side. Their proposal is going to bring as I said, a lower impact development than what is currently zoned for the property. I researched the township's master plan ordinance, and I provided a letter that I'm sure you've got. I mean, diversity in housing is what we need in this township. What they're planning, somebody made a comment that there's, several hundred multifamily housing units proposed, whether they get developed is another thing, proposed in the township. But on Zillow last night I looked, there's less than 50 houses for sale in Okemos and Hazlet. Okay? This project is going to bring 106 home housing units into the township that will appeal to people that are looking to downsize, again, freeing up some additional homes that could be used in the township for families. And it's for young professionals that want their own garage. They want to feel like they've got essentially a home instead of a multi-story apartment. So they've been successful. They do their due diligence wherever they go. They build a quality community. And I think Meridian Township, they know 106 housing units will be absorbed quickly. And I believe it's in keeping with your township goals to create additional housing and diversification in housing in the township. Thank you.
Thank you. The next green card I have is for Ed Gillespie.
I'm Ed Gillespie. I'm not winking at you. I've had major eye surgery, so I can't see out of this eye, so I have to look at some notes here. I've lived at 2692 Rockwood Drive, the Wardcliff subdivision, for 36 years. Along with my neighbors, I spoke at several Meridian Township Planning Commission meetings urging the denial of Redwood's request to conditionally rezone the property they want to develop just east of Park Lake Road, close to the intersection of Grand River and Park Lake. After several meetings and extensive discussions, the 9-member Planning Commission overwhelmingly voted 7-2 to deny Redwood's request. In consideration of your time tonight, my friend Vince Leone over here and I, we chose not to bring 50 of our neighbors here tonight to make it a long night for you. That's why you only have 2 3-minute speakers tonight. I'm here on behalf of my neighbors who have already shared their comments and in person or in writing, and I think you've seen that in your packets. And I won't elaborate on previously shared concerns such as the increased traffic on Park Lake Road, serious drain issues, or the project not aesthetically blending with the surrounding neighborhood. Instead, let me use the pronoun we, ask that tonight you vote to uphold the Planning Commission's decision based on the following indisputable fact, a fact affirmed by both the Planning Commission and the Township's Planning Department. Redwood's request does not conform with the Meridian Township's master plan. And that's all I have to say about that. Thanks.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the board at this time? Thank you. We'll move on to item 6, Township Manager's Report.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor, members of the board. There's a lot of things on your agenda tonight, but there's nothing more important than what you just did. It's all about the people who've worked in this township and what they continue to do. And I appreciate what you did for Mr. Mankowski and for all the Santa helpers tonight. So thank you for that. The deer management program is now up to 115. We're back to the archery season. The state's firearm season ended on November 30th. We've now switched over back to archery, and that program will continue until January 1, when the DNR sanctioned Township Police Department firearms season starts. Tomorrow, the task force, which includes 3 board members, the Community Senior Center Task Force, will be meeting with the Senior Center Advisory Board tomorrow morning, have a discussion about where we are, which we're still very much, I don't know if you could say square one or looking at square one, but we have so much in front of us. Just sitting down, having discussion about where we're at. The township's holiday party will be on Friday, December 15th. This will be our 11th annual. Next board meeting, you can expect the 4th quarter budget amendments, which is really important because it's going to kind of be a signal for how we're going to end up the year financially. We'll be saying not goodbye, but congratulations and firmly acknowledge Luann Maisner's contributions to the township over nearly 25 years. That'll be on December 21st in this room from 2 to 4. Same thing with Robin Faust. 34 years with the township, 10 o'clock on December 20th in this room, and she's encouraging you to wear purple. This Friday is a big day. We've been working for years on getting the MSU to Lake Lansing pathway. And of course, when we first came up with this concept years ago, you're going to build a bridge over the Red Cedar, and yeah, that's what we're going to do. So it's in place now, and look forward to the ribbon cutting noon for those that wish to attend the music building just north of Shaw at the MSU Music Building. You park there and you can see the bridge over the Red Cedar there. It goes all the way to Foods for Living, about 1 mile of a pathway that you'll now be able to use, eventually going all the way to Lake Lansing. The new flooring in the police building is underway. And the local road program, we're about ready to go out for bid, believe it or not, for the 2024 roads. We'll have that list. Deputy Manager Opsmer will have that list for you in January. On Tuesday, December 12th, at your next board meeting, you'll be given the goals document, the draft document for 2024. It'll encapsulate what happened in 2023 and a look forward to 2024. And of course, we'll talk about goals at a later time. The board has concluded their 6 listening sessions. We had over 300 residents attend our listening sessions, and soon we'll be authoring a summary of what we heard and some of the outcomes and things that we can really focus on based on that. We had some issues with home TV over the last few months that have been fixed, and now the issue has come up with cam TV. We are working to get that back in service. It's going to require an emergency purchase, and Manager Deal is working on that, and we'll have that before you at the December 12th meeting to move forward with that. And I want you to know that the MERS migration is complete. And we are now, all of our pension system has been moved from Mission Square over to MERS. That was completed just a couple days ago. And finally, our new Parks and Rec director is ready to be announced. We're excited for her arrival, and she'll begin on December 18th. And she'll work for a week with Director Maisner, kind of learning the ropes, and then go solo in January. We'll have more on that at our next board meeting. That's kind of what's going on at the township. We're preparing for board meeting tonight, board meeting next week, and then goal setting this month, and lots going on. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Board members, do you have questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Item 7 on our agenda is board member reports of activities and announcements. Mr. Duchesne.
Thank you. I want to thank you for the Governor Mankowski recognition tonight. He is very, very deserving of that. For a number of years, I've been part of the fundraising efforts, and every dollar goes right back into these gifts for these children. And the events themselves are really quite magical. And it's done with a lot of volunteer sweat and labor, and the other one's sheer drive to make sure that hundreds of kids who wouldn't have a Christmas every year have one. Tax bills were mailed last week. If you don't have your tax bill, give my office a call, 853-4140, and we'll email or mail you one right away. Lastly, I want to mention the listening sessions. As the manager mentioned, we did our last one on the 28th at Cornell Woods Elementary. We had 300 people total attend those. We didn't know who would be coming, how many would be coming, and we had excellent turnout. And I'll say this, as long as I'm on this board, I'll very much push for us doing this every year. These were excellent forums for us. We got a lot of information back from them. I learned a lot at those 6 sessions, and I'm sure all of us did as well.
Yes.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Guthrie.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Our team met today, bless you. Our team met today with the police and with fire to discuss our election security measures for early voting, for the 9 days of early voting, for Election Day, pre-processing. And we just discussed what further measures we could take to improve our security for election workers and for voters. So that was a very good discussion. So we'll be moving forward on those items that we discussed. This Thursday is an Ingham County Traffic Summit that our Deputy Township Manager, Dan Opsimer, will be attending and representing the township and all of the feedback that the Township Board received at the listening sessions and bringing those to, bringing that information to the Ingham County Traffic Summit that is occurring. So I'm happy to hear that and to let the public know about that. Also, if you have a permanent mail ballot application in your hands, please return it to our office. We sent out 30,000, we've received 8,000, and we know we have 17,000 people on our permanent absentee list, so we know we still expect to at least receive 8,000 back. So if you have those, please send them back to us so we can process them in December rather than January. We'd really appreciate it. Hanukkah begins this Thursday, so if anyone celebrates, happy Hanukkah to anyone out there. And then I too want to say thank you to Gaylord Mankowski and all of the work that he's done as someone who didn't have a lot for Christmas as a kid and someone who utilized services to help have presents for my own children. I really appreciate all the work that he's done, and it's a true legacy that he's given to his family and to this community, and I really appreciate all that he's given to this community. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Then we will move on to, I need a motion to approve the agenda. Mr.
I
DeShane,
move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
supported by trustee Wilson. All in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. I think I'm taking somebody else's job.
We're all in this together, it's okay.
Okay, that's good to know. Item 9 is the consent agenda. On the consent agenda tonight, we have typical communications, minutes of the November 21, 2023 regular Township Board meeting, the manager's bills or board's bills. There, item D, 9D is the ratification of a new paramedic, firefighter appointments. Chief Hamill is bringing to us Emma Brown and Carson Nix. Item E is ratification of new police officer appointments. Chief Grillo is bringing us Nathan Wicks and Alex Barber. Item 9F is a liquor license application for MAC Legends Indoor Golf LLC at 1982 West Grand River Avenue. And item 9G is the township's annual goal-setting meeting date, which Mr. Walsh proposes to be Monday, December 18 at 5 p.m. Do I have a motion? Mr. Hendrickson.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I move the consent agenda as presented this evening.
Support.
Supported by trustee Wilson. All in we need a roll call vote for the consent agenda.
Clerk Guthrie?
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Trustee Hendrickson?
Yes.
Trustee Sunland?
Yes.
Trustee Wilson?
Yes.
Supervisor Jackson?
Yes,
Motion carries 6-0.
thank you. There are no questions for the attorney tonight, no public hearings, and so we move to item 12, action items. 12A is ordinance 2023-07, fire protection and emergency services cost recovery ordinance. Chief Hamill. I got it right this time.
Madam Supervisor Board, thank you. So we've been to you twice on this, and we changed the question, which was number 2 in the back there in regards to taking house fire off it. So now my hope is that you'll pass it, so we can move forward and utilize it where we need to use it.
Okay. Give me just a second to catch up with myself. Is there a motion you'd like to offer? Trustee Hendrickson?
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I move to adopt the updated cost recovery ordinance number 2023-07, amending Chapter 18 of the Code of the Charter Township of Meridian to include the addition of Article 3, Fire Protection and Emergency Services, and authorize the clerk and supervisor to sign the ordinance.
Mr.
Support.
I think I saw Mr. DeShane's hand first.
Was it for support or for?
To support.
This report, yeah.
Apologize.
All right. Are there questions, comments? Would you like to comment on the motion?
Sure. So thank you, Chief Hamill, for bringing this back and for incorporating the change requested from the previous meeting. This is, and I will say what I've said last time, this time as well, which is this is sort of an optional thing, not a recovery of costs from a standard usage of fire services. These are extraordinary events where we see potential abuses or extraordinary costs. And so for that reason, I'll be supporting this ordinance this evening.
Mr. DeShane?
For the same reasons, I will be supporting it. Appreciate the chief bringing this to us. It is a chance to recover some of our cost for some of these calls that should be handled by other providers, particularly private services that have either left the market or just not fulfilling their contracts. We're not going to let someone die without a call. We're going to take them to the hospital. But if someone else has a contract to do that and they fail to perform and we have to perform, then they should pay for that cost. So for that reason, I will support this.
Okay. And Trustee Wilson?
I just have a question. Under Clause 5A, has the word house been removed?
So can I speak on that?
Please.
So when we submitted it last week, I submitted the wrong one. So I resubmitted it Saturday night or Sunday. I came in and took the fire off and resubmitted it to the clerk. And so yes.
So that's the resolution we're voting on tonight? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Sorry about that.
Other board members? So this is we have a motion to adopt the updated cost recovery ordinance number 2023-07, amending chapter 18 of the Code of the Charter Township of Meridian to include the addition of Article 3, Fire Protection and Emergency Services, and authorize the clerk and supervisor to sign the new ordinance. Let's have a roll call vote, Ms. Gordon.
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Trustee Hendrickson?
Yes.
Trustee Sunland?
Yes.
Trustee Wilson?
Yes.
Supervisor Jackson?
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Is there like a fee schedule attached to this?
So the fee schedule you had approved in the budget, if
Okay.
you want a copy of that, I can get that for you. We did change
Oh.
that a little bit for next year.
Yeah, I was just wondering.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what changes annually. This won't change unless something ordinary comes up that we need to change it again next year. Other than that, it should be good. The fee schedule might change annually based on increased pricing or additional fees also.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Chief
Thank you
Hamill.
guys very much.
Item 12B is ordinance 2023-06, rezone 5010 Park Lake Road and adjacent vacant properties from RA to RD with a conditioning rezoning agreement. Mr. Director Schmidt.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. So this request was in front of the board at the November 21st meeting for initial discussion. There was a robust discussion at that meeting about moving this forward. And so just to give everyone a background and reminder where we're at, the request is to rezone the property at 50, it's a total of 8.72 acres. It's the property at 5010 Park Lake Road and a portion of the vacant property to the rear. A portion of that vacant property is currently zoned RD, multifamily with a maximum of 8 dwelling units per acre. A portion of that property is currently zoned RA. A portion of that RA portion is being rezoned along with the entirety of 5010 Park Lake Road. The applicant has proposed, has proposed 9 conditions restricting the development of the site that would limit the proposed uses to attached townhouse-style units only. The building height shall be no greater than 16 feet or 1 story. The building length shall not exceed 196 feet. Minimum floor area of each unit will be 1,200 square feet. All roads will be private. The rezoning is conditioned upon Redwood, the applicant actually consummating the sale of the property and purchase. The development will not exceed 106 dwelling units. The development will not encroach onto the area described as Exhibit B in the agreement. What this means is the north-south 14 acres is set aside in perpetuity. And lastly, no clubhouses, pools, tennis courts, basketball courts, or gymnasiums are allowed to be constructed on the property. So that's the proposal in front of you. The Planning Commission reviewed this at a public hearing on September 25th and received a great deal of public feedback, as was alluded to previously by the speaker, and followed up at their October 23rd meeting where they recommended denial to the Township Board, largely due to the request not being completely in compliance with the master plan, the future land use map specifically. The board essentially has 3 options at this point. The board can move forward with introduction of the ordinance for adoption, which would be the normal course with a rezoning. You would direct staff to publish it in a newspaper of general record, and we would bring it back at the next meeting for adoption. The board can at this time move to deny. No publication would be made, no further action would be necessary. The board could also refer the matter back to the Planning Commission for further discussion. Specifically, if this is the case, we would recommend you identify that additional information, additional discussion point that you need the Planning Commission to focus on in their discussion. If just referring it back to the Planning Commission for further discussion without direction is probably not advisable. So those are the 3 options in front of you this evening. Staff does continue to recommend approval. This is a very borderline case, as we've pointed out multiple times. If this was not a conditional rezoning, this would be a fairly straightforward denial from us. But because it's a conditional rezoning and because of the conditions they are offering, we are at the point of being able to recommend approval. The applicant has, again, tried to follow up on done a deep dive into it. It does look like they're on the right track for addressing the broker and the property owners.
Okay, thank you. Clerk Guthrie.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I do want the applicant to know that we did receive communication and that it is part of the official record for the packet. Just wanted to let you know that.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I've got a question, if I can make that before the motion. And if it's appropriate, I'd like to ask the representative of the owners if they're still present in the room. Would you mind?
We can do that.
Thank you.
Yes,
Mr. O'Brien, you represent the 3 owners of the property?
that's correct, yes.
Have you had any discussions with them as to what would happen, what you would do if this rezoning was not to go forward this evening?
Well, we've marketed the property for several years, trying to find the right type of development that would fit within the zoning that's presently zoned. Again, they purchased it in the years ago for RD. They do have some multifamily properties on the west side of town that they've own and operate it. So we would continue down that path. Probably there is a way to develop it with its present zoning. And we've kind of provided, I think Redwood's engineers have provided what could be done by right. And as I mentioned earlier, there are difficulties because of the wetlands that are there in the floodplain and the rail line, which is a 175-foot setback, I believe, from or 75. It's a longer setback than a typical side yard would be. So it's challenging. We continue to look for other developers, but again, I go back to what they're proposing here. Yes, they need to rezone because they are clustering the property development where the area is not, does not contain wetlands and does not contain the flood issues. They're working with it as best they can with private roads to not impact that. They're donating 14 acres to, could be conservancy, it could be the drain commissioner to create additional drain capacity if they need it. And again, through an easement, I don't know if they want to actually convey the property, but that's another option. Again, I've been involved for 7 years. We've gone through a lot of different types of developers. The township wouldn't be happy with those projects, I don't believe, compared to what feedback I've gotten over the years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So in my opinion, well, at the last meeting, I stated a number of reasons why I believe this rezoning to be a suitable rezoning request, conditional rezoning request that came before us. I think that staff has provided us with an interesting third alternative to approval or denial, which is revisiting at the Planning Commission. And the only reason why I would consider that is the following. There's been a number of pieces of information that have come in since the matter was before the Planning Commission. The wetland information, the stormwater information, information about the actual traffic counts on Park Lake Road, which may have allayed a number of concerns that planning commissioners have. Certainly they did for me when I was reviewing this information. I personally believe that the conditional rezoning request before us is in compliance with the future land use map in terms of density. If I were put to a vote today, I would likely vote to approve this rezoning request. I understand from the conversation at the last meeting that that may not be the pleasure of the majority of the board, which is fine. Everyone is certainly entitled to their own opinions. I think that, when we look at this request as what can they build with the current zoning today versus what could they build with the conditional rezoning request that's being proposed, I think what a layperson might miss out on is rezoning this parcel conditionally as requested will result in fewer homes being built on this property, less density. If the property owner were to build out to its max capacity as currently zoned, they would be able to build 185 homes. Even if, by some magic stroke of the pen, this parcel were to be zoned completely RA, it would be able to build 126 units on this property. And so the 106 that are being offered as a part of the conditional rezoning is actually fewer than any other scenario in which this parcel is built out. And I think that there's a false choice being offered between something and nothing. Mm-hmm. This could be something or more something. And I think that we have to consider that as the governing body making this decision. I think that the applicant has been very responsive to every question that has been asked of them throughout this process. I think the conditions are well considered, and I think that at the end of the day, the proposal that's before us does meet with a number of the township goals that we have set forth in our master plan and our governing documents. And so for those reasons, I would be supportive of this rezoning.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I respectfully disagree and feel that given the information and more information that's given, the more I disagree with approving the rezoning. So therefore, can I make a motion?
And you can tell, you can, but you'll have to tell us why you
Okay.
disagree. And okay.
Okay. Therefore, I would like to move to adopt the resolution denying ordinance 2023-06, an ordinance to rezone the property at 5010 Park Lake Road and a portion of the adjacent vacant property parcel ID numbers 33-02-02-17-476-016 and 33-02-02-17-476-024 from RA Single Family Medium Density Residential to RD Multiple Family Residential, maximum of 8 dwelling units per acre, subject to a series of conditions offered by the applicant.
Support.
Okay. Clerk Guilford, would you tell us why?
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. The reason that I move to adopt the denying of the resolution is that I agree with the Planning Commission in their recommendations to deny the rezoning based off of the 2 public hearings that they held and the numerous discussions that they held and the additional information that was presented to the board, in addition to the previous board meeting and the information that is in this packet.
Trustee Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I will be supporting the resolution to deny based on one sheer fact, and that is that it is not in the future land use map of the 2017 master plan under which we are operating today.
Mr. Duchesne.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I appreciate the thorough presentation that Redwood has given us with this proposal and Mr. O'Brien's overview as well. I also appreciate Mr. Gillespie speaking for 50 residents and not, we didn't need to hear from all 50 again, although I'm very confident based on the Planning Commission that I watched that they would very well come out if they thought there was a need to come out. I also have great appreciation for the fact this is a difficult parcel to develop. It's got a lot of impediments to development. And this proposal tries to thread the needle, if you will. The drain issues are just one of many that I think would cause it to be difficult to develop. Nonetheless, I will also support the motion to deny based again on the Planning Commission's recommendation to this board and the fact that this rezoning is not in compliance with the future land use map. We rely on the Planning Commission. We very rarely go against the Planning Commission, and I don't have compelling reason to vote contrary to the recommendation tonight. For those reasons, I'll be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Other comments? I have a question. Is the future land use map for the 2019 master plan the same as the future land use map for that we haven't adopted yet?
This area is not proposed to change at this time.
That's right. The area is not proposed to change.
There are some changes to the future land use map being proposed from staff and the Planning Commission. which we expect to make a recommendation on next week, but this area is not one of those changes.
Okay. Clerk Guilford.
My apologies, Madam Supervisor. Did you mean the 2017
And the
land
20,
use map just for the minutes, for the record?
right.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't mean that.
Thank you.
Other comments? Okay, I'd like to add, first of all, that I disagree with you. And I support Trustee Hendrickson's analysis. One of the things that I learned many years ago, as I learned planning commission, was one, it was a living document. It constantly changed. Two is that you have to allow a owner some reasonable opportunity to develop their land. Three, that in this case, under the rules of RA, this divided property cannot be built on at the numbers that are allowed under that, the maximum numbers that are allowed under those conditions. That not only do the maps change, but the conditions around a property change. In this case, and also that sometimes the map is just wrong. Property cannot, and because the zoning is inappropriate, and in this case, to the extent that this property cannot be appropriately used and under the zoning that it has. In my opinion, I think the developers have given us a gift in a way to achieve the type of development that we want or would prefer to see. And the only way to get there is to rezone the property to something like AI. And then in addition to the conditions which allow them to change the things that we don't like. We don't like the density, they can get it down to the density in RA but not RD. If we don't like the, we don't want the property to be covered with housing, and we prefer to preserve as much green space as we can. They're offering, because of the conditions of the land, not to develop that property. If we have problems with the amount of traffic that would be produced, then they're offering reduced numbers and reduced usage of the road by reducing the numbers. For that reason, I am in support of this rezoning, particularly with the conditions that the developers have offered to better meet our desirable development type. Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
So yeah, it's all very a difficult issue, and we've got some varying opinions. I have a tendency to agree with the planning commission. We typically do not disagree with them, and future land use, I'm a little hesitant to have that changed. So just having said that, those are the reasons that I would be hesitant to have any changes made at this time.
Okay. Any other comments? Then I think we are at a point where we have a motion on the floor. The motion was to not rezone the property. We have, I need to find the motion and read it. The motion was to adopt the resolution denying ordinance 2023-06 to rezone the property at 5010 Park Lake Road and a portion of the adjacent vacant property parcel ID numbers 33-02-02-17-476-016 and 33-02-02-17-476-024 from RA, single family, medium density, residential to RD, multiple family, residential with a minimum of eight, with a maximum of 8 dwelling units, thank you, per acre, subject to the series of conditions offered by the applicant. All in favor?
A roll call.
A roll call, I'm sorry. Yes, Ms. Gordon.
Trustee Hendrickson?
No.
Trustee Sunland?
Yes.
Trustee Wilson?
Yes.
Supervisor Jackson?
No.
Clerk Guthrie?
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-2.
Okay. Trustee Hendrickson, I believe you have an opportunity to make a different motion to refer it back to the
I think that action was final on the minute.
final, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. So we now move on to ordinance 2023-08-CV Conservancy District Updates Introduction.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. So this is an ordinance that you've seen before, the Planning Commission previously reviewed, recommended approval, had no major concerns. Just to briefly go through it one last time, this would amend the definitions in the CV Conservancy District as outlined in your packet this evening to update them to current standards. It would change several references to FEMA maps to not reference specific maps, but reference the current maps. And it would allow decks as a permitted use within the CV district, which is currently not the case. And lastly, it would allow for essentially an administrative review of fill under 10 cubic yards. This is consistent with how it's currently treated around Lake Lansing when there is soil erosion sedimentation concerns. You're allowed to make up to 10 cubic yards of essentially repair. Treated the same way here, would still have to mitigate properly, would still have to be approved by the floodplain administrator, but essentially takes out the essentially 3-month special use permit process after they've already gone through what is a lengthy review with the state and potentially the Army Corps of Engineers. Just to follow up on the main question that was raised at the last board meeting, our current floodplain map on areas that have substantial property loss and slowly work their way outward from rivers. And so ours are under review. They're not done yet, though, and I do not have an ETA yet.
Mr. DeShane.
I move to adopt the resolution approving for introduction zoning amendment 2023-08 to amend Article 4 of the zoning ordinance of the Charter Township of Meridian to update the CV Conservancy District.
Support.
Supported by Trustee Wilson? Mr. Deshane?
A lot of this just seems to be normal, necessary housekeeping to keep from putting the homeowners in these CVs through undue hardship in a process that is arcane and unnecessary. I like the fact that it's modeled after our special district on Lake Lansing, where we have unique circumstances, just as we do with the CV area.
Trustee Wilson?
I concur with Treasurer Deshane that it's housekeeping matters, minor changes to allow people to fully utilize their property, particularly around the lake.
Trustee, Clerk Guthrie?
Just for clarification, the motion as written is to update the standards of the CV, and it was read to update the CV Conservancy District, that we are updating the motion as written, the standards of the CV Conservancy District,
Okay,
for the record.
okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Deshane, do you have?
No objection to that clarification. Thank you.
Okay, and Trustee Wilson?
Yes. Yes, I agree.
Okay. Are there other comments? So the motion is to adopt the resolution approving for introduction zoning amendment 2023-08 to amend Article 4 of the zoning ordinance of the Charter Township of Meridian to update the standards of the CV Conservancy District. Okay? All in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. The chair votes yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item 12D is paid parental leave policy. Our presenter tonight is Manager Walsh.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Supervisor. This issue was brought to the administration 3 months ago from Trustee Hendrickson, Trustee Wilson, and Clerk Guthrie. And we were asked to do some background work on it over time and to bring back a policy to be implemented by January 1 of 2024. And at this time, I think we've completed all of our work. We appreciate all the work of the board on this. I know our staff is very excited about this potential policy, and at this time, I turn it back over to you, to the authors, because we've done all our work. It's now up to the board if they want to move forward. Thank you very much.
Yes, Trustee Hendrickson.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I move to adopt the paid parental leave policy for Meridian Township for a pilot program starting January 1st, 2024.
Support.
Trustee Hendrickson.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. What is before you this evening is a policy document that will establish a paid parental leave program here in the township. Based on the feedback from our previous meeting, this is for 4 weeks of paid parental leave time upon the birth of a child or placement of a child for adoption. Some highlights include the fact that this must be a permanent full-time employee who's completed 12 months of service. The child in question must have been born or an adoptive minor child up to age 5, parent of those. The goal is for it to run alongside the federally mandated FMLA leave so that the parents can get paid for that without having to burn through their accrued hours for vacation time or sick time. So this is on top of anything like that. This is a new program, new to the township, and the pilot nature of the program is an indication that we hope to revisit this at some point down the road to see if it merits expansion in any way. But we believe that this is an exciting opportunity to provide a new benefit to our employees and to help maintain Meridian Township's place as a very competitive employer in the region. And so we're very excited to bring this forward to you.
Okay. Trustee Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. You know, when we first looked at we were trying to mimic the program that is with the state of Michigan, and that is parental leave up to 12 weeks. Well, we had to pivot because, as it turned out, it would create some pretty dramatic staffing issues, particularly in our public sector area. So I'm glad that we are stepping ahead with this opportunity. We're going to baby step our way into it with the pilot program. I think it's exciting, and it does recognize the value of our employees and how also the value of having the opportunity to be home with your infant or with your adopted child and not have to worry about where your paycheck is coming from. So I'm glad to see we're starting this.
Other comments? Trustee Sunderland.
Hi, okay, so, my question is just that, it is a pilot program, and we're saying it's a pilot program, so I was just wondering, what the parameters of the time frame are, like, are we gonna review it in a year? Are we gonna set 3 years to review it? So I think we need to have some sort of time frame for review, whatever is appropriate. I'm open to ideas. I'm just thinking that we should have something that
Mr. DeShane.
indicates.
I'm sorry. Okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
I agree we should review it, but I don't really want to tie our hands tonight to a 1-year review or 2-year review. We don't have any data yet. I'm confident that the board that will be elected next year will look at this policy and review it in time, once we've got some valid data on it. This is a really excellent benefit to give our employees, and I commend trustees Hendrickson and Wilson for bringing this forward. It's a good idea.
And Clerk Guthrie.
And Clerk Guthrie, thank you, for all three of you. We did talk about 12 weeks. That was the original discussion. And I think this whole process shows the collaboration that we have with the staff. We set a policy, we suggest a policy, and we get some feedback from staff saying, yeah, this will help employee retention, but it could gut our public safety departments. And so we pulled back and went from 12 back to 4 initially, and possibly we'll keep it at 4. Possibly we would expand it. We don't know yet. Manager Walsh, you did some research or did as to what other communities, not anyone but the state government, offered. What were the other paid parental leave programs that you saw? The length of paid weeks offered.
Yeah, thank you. And I do, if you don't mind, can I respond to the timetable as
Yes,
well?
please.
Yeah. So the goal that we had thought of, since this is a pilot program, is to come back a year from now during our goal setting and have that part of our goal setting is how did the first year go? So that was the thought that we had. Moving on to answer your question, Treasurer DeShane, is that we found that about less than 15% of the communities that we surveyed even had a paid parental policy. So we would be in the top 15% in the state that have this sort of program. And what we found is strong majority of those were between 2 and 4 weeks. We found one outlier that had 6 weeks, but we found nothing greater than 6. But on the average, it was about 3 weeks was the average for the state of the 15% that actually had a program.
Thank you.
Okay. Clerk Guthrie.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. So under 2, procedure, item F, it says for FMLA eligible employees, the FMLA provides up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave following the birth or adoption of a minor child. Any parental paid leave time utilized under this policy will run simultaneously with any available FMLA leave for the same qualifying event. So my question, I have 2 questions. One, does the parental paid leave time, if I were to use, let's say I need to use 2 weeks of paid parental leave time, does that mean I'm also using 2 weeks of FMLA?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
So, as I understand it, and we might get a different answer if Lizzie Mills, our counsel, was in front of us this evening, but as I understand it, and I can get further clarification for you, Clerk Guthrie, as I understand it, it is 12 weeks. It is 12 weeks period. It just depends on how you count up to that 12 weeks. What time do you use? So, for instance, for this, if, let's just say we have an expectant mother in the engineering department who is going to have a baby on January 2nd. So that 12 weeks would start counting from January 2nd, but the first 4 weeks would be paid parental leave, and then the additional 8 weeks would be either the use of their sick time, personal time, or vacation time.
Or unpaid.
Or unpaid, yes.
And unpaid.
Yeah, we hope, we don't have, yeah, if that's true, it could happen.
Okay, so what I hear you saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I just want to make this section clear for me, is that what you're saying is that the paid parental leave is not going to affect vacation, sick, or personal time.
What I'm saying is
It's only
that,
FMLA time.
well, but to use FMLA, you have to use some sort of time to get paid. So again, it's 12 weeks that you get, and if the board approves this tonight, it used to be out of those 12, you had to use sick, vacation, or personal, or unused, or unpaid, right? We always try to work it out where it's not unpaid for what we have to do to help the employee with that. What this does is it gives the first 4 weeks, they don't have to use anything, they use the paid parental leave.
They don't have to use vacation, sick, or
Nothing,
personal.
nothing.
Okay.
You're giving them the first 4 weeks if you approve this tonight. Starting on week 5, then they have to use their own time. Before, they'd have to use 12 weeks of their time, now they have to use 8.
Okay.
Does that answer it?
It does.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification.
Other questions?
I'm sorry, I have one more question. So it says, the second part of this says, this policy will run simultaneously with any available FMLA leave for the same qualifying event. So let's say I had to, I'll use my mother as an example. I had to take care of my mother for 12 weeks, and then I get pregnant, or I adopt a child or whatever, and need to take additional time off. This paid parental leave, this 4 weeks, grants me that ability to do that, even though I used all of my FMLA time.
So
I think I can answer that question, if I may, Madam Supervisor. So the intent was that if you have FMLA and you are using FMLA for parental leave, that paid parental leave will run concurrently and simultaneously with it. If you don't claim FMLA and you meet the rest of the eligibility criteria laid forth in Section 1, then yes, you'd be able to claim the 4 weeks of paid time. It's not intended to exclude you from being able to take paid parental leave if you are, for some reason, not eligible for FMLA.
So this says any available FMLA. If you don't have any FMLA, you don't get paid parental leave time, is how this reads to me in letter F. Is that correct? That's how it reads to me. If you don't have any available FMLA leave, you don't get paid parental leave.
The intent of that clause was to preclude the possibility of someone trying to say, I'm taking 12 weeks of FMLA and then 4 weeks of paid parental leave, so that it's actually 16 weeks. The intent of that clause was to say, if you have FMLA that you are using and you have paid parental leave, they must overlap so that we're not looking at 16 total weeks. And when it was originally drafted, it was 12 weeks. We weren't looking at 24 total weeks of being off. That was the goal.
So this isn't saying that if you don't have FMLA available, you can't get parental paid leave time.
Correct, it is not saying that.
Is that how you, as township manager and HR, interpreted this to read? So if somebody didn't have any FMLA left, that they could still get paid parental leave time for 4 weeks?
Well, I'm not going to speak for HR.
Okay.
I'll speak for myself and only myself. I agree. And the thing is too, as you know how it is when you write a policy, right?
Yes.
And you write a 3 or 4 page policy, there's always going to be parts of it that are up for interpretation. You can never nail down a policy ironclad. And I've spent my career, my 32 years doing this, is that when something like this comes up and it's questionable in any policy, try to work with the team member, do what's best in the team member's eyes and work it out. So I'm confident. I will, though, just run this by council, the specific question by council to make sure if there's any hiccup in it, we can bring it back on the 12th. But I agree with what the interpretation that Trustee Hendrickson just laid out.
Thank you, because and thank you for asking the attorneys, because I would like to clarify this section to make sure there's no question with staff, we're all on the same point, because that is not how I interpreted it when I read it. And so to be all on the same page with the attorney's blessing would be great. I appreciate you asking that question.
I'll look into that.
I mean, I'm prepared to approve this tonight and knowing that you will follow up on that point.
Okay. Trustee Wilson.
Just a point about FMLA, Federal Medical Leave Act. It's a federal law that you, as an employee, after 1 year of service, and you'll note that this dovetails with the parental leave policy, which says you must have 1 year of service before you're eligible to take this. And what it says is that you are entitled to take up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave. And you don't have to take it at one time. You can take it, work half-time and take half-time FMLA. There's lots of variations about how you can use it, but it is capped at 12 weeks. And the purpose of FMLA is to ensure you have a job to go back to. During that period that you are on FMLA, your job has to be held for you. So that's the most important part about FMLA, is that it's unpaid, but it gives you a guarantee you get back to work. So this is trying to dovetail with FMLA. And that's why, looking at it as concurrent, if you have FMLA and you're eligible for it, having served your 1 year in your position, you'll be able to take parental leave those 4 weeks, and that will count against your maximum 12 weeks of time for FMLA, which rolls over every year. Does that make sense? I hope that helps.
Thank you, Madam. So what I hear you saying is that FMLA, 12 weeks of unpaid parental leave, if they utilize it, however much is utilized, will be taken against the FMLA leave time, but they will be paid rather than unpaid.
You got it. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And if I may.
Mr. Wald.
It's not an additional 4 weeks.
No.
Thank you. Sorry, Township Manager Walsh.
Mr. Wald.
Thank you. The maximum is 12 weeks, and Trustee Wilson's correct, it's unpaid, but then what people are able to, what team members are able to do, obviously, is they use their personal time, they use their sick time, and they get paid for that time. Most everyone has that accumulated time to use to make sure they're not home without a check.
But they're not doing that in this instance with paid parental leave. They're not using sick
for
and
4
vacation.
They're getting a 4-week credit of paid time without using any other time.
Thank you.
Think of it as an extra benefit.
Yes, right. And I get that. It seemed unclear to me in letter F. And as a former director, I received lots of FMLA questions, which I always deferred to HR. And so I wanted to be clear with what letter F was spelling out. So I appreciate you taking the time.
Sure.
To clear that up for me.
Okay. Anyone else? So we're ready to move to adopt the paid parental leave program for Meridian Township for a pilot program starting January 1, 2024. Everybody agree with what I've read? Involving money again, let's take a roll call vote.
Trustee Sunland,
Yes.
trustee Wilson,
Yes.
supervisor Jackson.
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie,
Yes.
treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
trustee Hendrickson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Motion
you.
carries 6-0.
Item 12E is the Marshall Park Playground enhancements. There she is.
Good evening, Supervisor Jackson and Board. I'm here to talk to you about Marshall Park.
Okay.
It's the first park you see as you enter Meridian Township on Marsh Road from the north. Large open space. A lot of it is wet. But what is there is a small parking lot, a basketball court, and a play structure that has long exceeded its life expectancy. It's been there for 27 years. I know the board conducted listening sessions throughout the community, and this was maybe one of the items that came up during one of those sessions. And I know you spoke at a previous meeting about an opportunity to maybe work with the Park Commission and provide funding to replace the play structure there. I did take that back to the Park Commission, unanimously supportive of moving forward with this. And so I am here today with a request and a motion for us to move forward with an allocation from the general fund to pay for a new play structure. And I know my days are limited here, but I can work on that. We can get it rolling. And so my predecessor can take it home. But I think this, I have to say, and I know that it's been a long night already, but when I started here, the Park Commission and the Township Board did not get along. And the respect that each board has their own role to play, but the respect that each board has had for one another today and for a number of years now has been really outstanding. And so I think this is great that we can kind of work together to make this happen.
Okay. Can I ask you a question first?
Sure.
What's the typical lifespan of the?
About 20 years.
Okay.
About 20, and this is 27.
Okay.
And 150,000 sounds like a lot of money. It really is not.
Okay.
So I think Patriarch Park, I don't know if you've been there, theirs was, I think, upwards of 700,000 or more for theirs. Yeah, so the 150 really isn't that much money in the whole
In
scheme.
comparison to
Right.
what we put into others.
Right.
One more question?
Trustee Wilson, sure.
Thank you. When we originally conceived of this idea of doing this, trustee Hendrickson and myself, we were also thinking there might be benches, there might be some other amenities. This is specific to a new play structure. But would you be incorporating some benches, some resting areas into the project?
Yes, certainly.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure. I drove by there today. That playground equipment doesn't look that bad,
Yeah.
but it's worn
It's not
out.
unsafe. I guess I just want to know it's not unsafe.
Yeah.
But it is in definite need of replacement. And especially with our new park sign going in, and now that's going to make everyone take a look.
Right.
We can do better than what's there, so this is really working out to everyone's benefit here, so appreciate it.
It's also an example of things changing in the midst of the process and for the better. Trustee Wilson.
May I make the motion?
Sure, you
Madam
please.
Supervisor, move to approve funding in the amount of $150,000 from the general fund to support a new play structure and amenities in Marshall Park located at 6105 Marsh Road, Hazlet, for installation in the spring of 2024.
Support.
All right.
And I added that
Please
clause just to be sure that we are looking at not only the structure itself, but some other amenities there, like
The
benches
playground,
and
I
that
guess
kind
I
of
should
thing.
say, incorporates the whole
Right.
play space.
Thank you.
You will make that change in the.
Yes, for the
motion?
record, we will include
Would you please?
and amenities.
Yes.
Yes.
And then we'll rely on Madam Director, who's walking out the door, to put that together. Thank you. And I am supportive of this because we realized, we heard in our listening session up in Hazlet, the second listening session that we had, it seemed very clear to us that there's a population up there that doesn't have easy walking access to a park area. And one of the things that Director Maisner and I discussed at length was, yes, we put a lot of money into parks up in Hazlet, particularly into Towner Park, but you have to have a car to get to Towner Park from this area. So spiffing up this area to be available to children and adults in the immediate walkable area just seems like a really good thing to do.
Okay. Trustee Hendrickson.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Yeah, I agree. In many ways, this is the gateway to Meridian from the north. And the residents were asking for it at the listening session. And it's relatively low-hanging fruit. It's something that we can do to make a change and make a change quickly. I think the other, the downstream effect of this is every other project that's been stacked up one per year for the next 27 years gets bumped 1 year forward. And so parks, other parks in future years will be seeing progress made more quickly as well. And that's just sort of the trickle-down effect of having, acted on something that's next year's plan this year. And so I think this will be a tremendous benefit to the township residents in this area around the Lake District and Hazlet at large. And I think it's a good sign to the residents that came to our listening sessions that we hear you and that where we can make change, we will.
Other comments? Okay. The motion is to approve funding in the amount of $150,000 from the general fund to support a new play structure in Marshall Park.
Play structure and amenities.
And amenities. To support a new play structure and amenities in Marshall Park located at 6105 Marsh Road, Hazlet, for installation in the spring of 2024. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Gordon.
Trustee Wilson?
Yes.
Supervisor Jackson?
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie?
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Trustee Hendrickson?
Yes.
Trustee Sunland?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is board discussion items. 13A is Meridian Township Public Safety Recruitment and Retention Program. We will hear from Chief Grillo. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you. Good evening. You may recall that this issue was before you 2 months ago. And at that time, the outline of that plan has changed. It's changed dramatically. And I want to credit both chiefs for that, because the first attempt at this really did not hit the bullseye that we were hoping to hit after some reflection. And there's two components to this, and Chief Grillo is going to do an outline of this as a refresher to the board since it's been so long. The reason it's back on for discussion is because it's the proposal has changed dramatically since we brought this to you. This is a costly proposal, and it's going to be one that's going to affect our budget over the next couple of years. But I've really poured over the numbers for 25 and 26. And I believe that we can do this, we can sustain this, and that's why we're bringing this forward. It all is based on the number one priority in this community of keeping this community the safest community around. It's all about a strong police and a strong fire department. And that's the number one thing we're trying to do, we've done as a community, and will continue to do. And that's what this proposal is about this evening. It's a very competitive world, and Meridian Township's going to step it up hopefully over the next few weeks. So with that, I won't go into it because we've had a lot of discussions. I won't go through the whole thing because I think Chief Grillo and Chief Hamill are going to more than adequately inform you of where we're at and where we hope to go. So I'll be here in case you have any questions, but I'll turn it over now to our two very outstanding chiefs. So Chief Grillo.
Thank you, Manager Walsh. Board, thank you very much for listening to me tonight. I know this is a very important topic, my staffing levels. When I came before you in October, they weren't great, and they haven't improved since then. So again, I appreciate your time tonight. I very much appreciate Manager Walsh and the concern he has shown for the issues that we're having right now, and his openness to all of the different ideas that we've come up with. And I think that we actually have a very good plan moving forward. So quick recap, this is a kind of a regurgitation of the information that you already have that I gave to you during my last presentation. But just a reminder, in 2009, 42 officers, in 2022, 35. Today I have 31. Calls for service have gone up, citations have gone down, and our population has gone up. Fire department has similar issues. Their staffing level has kind of stayed stagnant since 2010, but their calls for service have gone up, including EMS calls and fire calls. Just to, I guess, kind of illustrate the exact amount of change that we had, 42 officers, and I guess we've decreased our staff on the road by 17% in 2022, and if you use 2023 numbers, it's actually over 25%. Calls for service have gone up by 27%. Population has steadily increased by 13%. Firefighters, very similar issues. Their calls for service have gone up by 17%, and mutual aid calls, I'm sure Chief Hamill could speak to it better than I could, have exploded 218%. My overtime budget, I had to do another fourth quarter budget amendment because we will probably be 3 times what our allotted amount was at the beginning of the year, from $80,000 to over $240,000 this year. Today, 31 officers, however. I have 2 officers that are slotted to retire next year. I currently have 4 recruits that are in the police academy, 2 of which graduate on Friday. I have 2 others that graduate in May, and 2 more that are slotted to start the academy in January and will graduate in May. Do you want to speak on yours, Chief? Yeah.
Sure, thank you. So our department, just basically from me on down, we have we're up to 36 firefighters as of next year, which you approved, thank you, in our next budget. And then that will take us up to 36 plus 4 administrative staff. As our call volume's gone up, that's really the reasons we've pushed additional staffing, because it's who knows where it's going. So for us, this has been a benefit. We've been lucky to find employees. With 2 resigning this fall, we were able to fill those positions as of this week that you approved tonight, for the most part till next week when we bring them in. And then we've got 2 that we're looking at for next year that we hope will come on board. And so we've been lucky to find paramedics. That's really where our shortage is.
So, Treasurer DeShane, I believe that you asked me last time I came before you how our wages compared, and I believe I said below average. A wage study was done by Grand Blanc Township. These were the results. For top wage, the average from the comparables was over $77,000, and we were at $71,000 for our top wage. Would you like to do or would you like me to do this, sir? Okay. So what is our plan? Our initial plan was a $5,000 incentive for recruiting. Initially it was for any police officer who brought us a prospective recruit that could make it through field training and make it through probation. Thanks to Scott Hendrickson's idea at the last meeting. We've actually changed that to any full-time Meridian Township employee. So anybody who works full-time, any of our 160-plus employees that comes to us with a police officer or a firefighter that joins the police department will have a kind of a step progression for their bonus, where for the police department specifically, it's $1,000 upon hire, $1,000 upon completion of the field training program, and then an additional $3,000 when they are off of probation, which is after 1 year of service.
Very similar to us. The only difference is we have kind of two steps. So if we hire an EMT firefighter who is going to go to paramedic school, it's going to drag it out a little bit longer. So the first entry level, they would get $1,000. And then as soon as they finish paramedic school, they'd get the $2,000. And then with the anniversary after that, they would get the other $2,000. So if you hire a paramedic, it's similar to chief, where they get $1,000, and then after the first year, they get $2,000, and then the next year, $2,000. So we appreciate that. That's already paid dividends.
That's the first part of the proposal for recruitment. As far as retention goes, when Manager Walsh and I discussed this, we talked a lot about different types of bonuses and how we could make that work. And he specifically asked me about a wage increase. And my suggestion was a 10% wage increase. And he agreed that that was the proper amount to make us attractive to other recruits that are coming in and possibly some lateral transfers. The proposal that we're bringing before you today is a 10% wage increase, in addition to the already budgeted for 3% wage increase, which is agreed upon in our collective bargaining agreements. This would take effect January 1. It would, I can speak for police because I'm not sure on the fire numbers, but I can say that this would make us the highest paid base wage in the greater Lansing area. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
We'd be the same.
They'd be the same, so I'm here to take any questions that you have. Yes, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Who jumped at? Madam Supervisor?
Yes, Trustee Wilson.
May I ask, do you have any kind of a retention requirement to this, that they work for the department for any period of time?
That's not built into this proposal, no ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
So the only the only thing we have on that, if I do hire an EMT, they have to sign an agreement that they will stay. And if they don't pass the paramedic program or resign, they have to pay back the cost of the program. I think it's similar with your police academy.
Yeah, so there are requirements if we pay for their police academy that they have to pay us back. But as far as the wages go, we don't have anything that says you're signing a 3-year contract to stay here.
Okay, thank you.
I assume that's what your question is, that.
Yeah, yes, thank you.
Clerk Guthrie.
I have a question for Manager Walsh. So if an employee recruits someone, do they have to stay as an employee to get the remaining recruitment bonus monies? Or if you end employment, you don't get? Or is that not flushed out yet?
Well, you got like a crazy 8-ball in front of you. That's something we haven't.
I missed the last meeting because of COVID, so I'm here to ask questions.
That's a question, it's a good question, but one we've not thought about at all. So I don't know. So what you're saying is that if an employee signs the forms and gets approval from the chiefs that I'm sponsoring this person, they're coming here, and I get $1,000 there, but I leave the employment, do I collect the rest? My answer today would probably be no. You probably need to be, if this program's about retention and recruitment, and you're leaving, it probably, yeah, but it's a good question. My answer tonight would be no. They would not get the extra amount.
Either way, I support your recommendation, just something to include in this,
Yeah,
in this
thank
new
you.
retention program.
Yeah, if I may, Supervisor?
Please.
One of the big questions is, how do we pay for this? And I've got a couple of suggestions for that. that I'd like to bring up to you at a later. One is out of the redevelopment fund that we talked about, and that would carry us for a couple years in itself. Another way that I had thought about was right now we're paying our required contribution, our ARC on our pension, plus we're paying it another $1.5 million on top of that pension. And now we have our pension from the mid-50s up to the mid-70s. Perhaps it's a time to step back a little bit on that and say, okay, we've got the pension up now where it belongs. We've got our township health care, which was $4.9 million in debt. We have our township health care now paid at 100%. We had about $2 million in debt in our township pension fund, which is closed, which does not include police and fire. That is now 108% paid off. So we paid off all of this debt, and we've increased our MERS pension, the one that includes police and fire, from 54 to 74% over the last few years. We may want to take a step back and say, okay, now where's the missing piece? Where's the missing piece? We used to have 4 missing pieces, and now we have 1. And I think that we may want to take a step back in the next few weeks, and I want to talk about this during our goal setting because it's really policy driven. But I believe we may want to, obviously we want to continue to pay that $1.5 million and the required contribution, but that third piece of it, we may want to put into police and fire retention and recruitment. And because we can pay down that pension at a highly accelerated rate like we are, but where are we going to be if we don't have the people to answer the domestics and all the heart attacks, all the stuff that our men and women do, which is critically important. And so that's where I'm heading on this is we know where we've been in the last 10 years on our debt, and we know where we are now, which has gone from about a D- up to about an A-. So let's fix this missing piece, and that's kind of what I'm going to focus on financially going forward, because I don't want to strap the township so much in trying to do this that it's tough to do anything else. There's a way to do this and do it right and still be A+ prime community financially. Sorry for the long answer, but I want you to know when it comes to financing this, well under control. Thank you.
Mr. Dishon.
Thank you. Chief Goodall,
Yes, sir.
I can see how this will help in retention. What is your expectation in terms of attracting new officers? Do you think, how likely do you think it is we would get lateral moves from other departments with this increased pay scale?
Yes, sir. I feel very confident that we will. And I say that because just from talking to my officers who are kind of connecting with other officers, that this has already created quite a buzz locally. And I can't say for sure that somebody else is going to apply, but I know that there are a lot of other agencies talking about this and a lot of line workers that are talking about this. So I feel very confident that this will attract local talent to come here. And maybe even people who aren't necessarily local, people who are looking for jobs and they see that this would fit into their lifestyle. To work in a community like Meridian Township is an awful huge bonus, but then on top of that, you come to a place where you're compensated the way that we're compensated with the health care that, none of us really are out of pocket for, with all of the additional things that we get, plus this 10% increase, and the support that we receive from the board. I think it will be very, very effective.
Regarding the 2 retirees in the first quarter of next year, is there any chance you can offer an incentive to keep them?
One of them, no. She's made it very clear to me that her intentions are to leave, and she has, fulfilled everything that we've asked her to do, and I'm extraordinarily grateful for the service that she's provided. The other one, he has some other things going on. I anticipate that even though he's eligible to leave earlier, I think he'll probably stay till later in the year. I'm not sure if this
is to pay, and I'm wondering, are there studies done? Have you looked at the numbers for what this would look like in the after state if we approve this?
We have not, and I'm not going to sit up here and try to illustrate that we have. That's a piece of this that is concerning, moving forward. And it's something that we really can't articulate at this time. We'll know more in the next 24 months how it affects our pension, and we'll be able to stabilize from there. There's there's some risk here involved. There's some risk about we talked about this actually today at our meeting at 4:00 as we prepared for this presentation. That is a great question that I thought would come up tonight. And I could sit here and try to spin a maze and tell you I've done this or I've done that. I haven't, because I don't think there's a way to clearly articulate where we'll be on this, because it depends on a lot of things. I will tell you, the good news is that more than half of the people who are receiving this increase are on the new pension system. And that's going to be the saving grace. If we were still all on the 2.75 multipliers, without the hybrid pension system that we brought in the last few years, we now have a 1.75 multiplier and a 10% DC and a 7% healthcare payment we don't even offer retiree healthcare to do. So I believe strongly in a person who's dealt with pensions for a long time. My hunch is we're going to be just fine because of the change. But there's going to be bumps along the road that we're going to have to, and that's why I think pulling back this extra funding and setting it in a fund, of course, we already have a $2.2 million pension stabilization fund. We're going to be able to add greatly to that if we don't make that third payment to MERS. We're making the ARC, we're making the 1.5. If we don't make that third additional payment and stock that up in our pension fund, we'll be just fine. But it is a very valid question, very valid point. To me, I look at risk, and I'm very risk adverse, right? But when I look at the risk that's facing us, the greatest risk is not being able to respond, maybe not where we're going to be in 4 years, although it's a very valid question. But that's where we're at on that, Trustee Hendrickson.
Thank you. And then my second question was a matter of procedure. So say the board wants to move forward with this, and presumably there's a vote at some point, or we at least indicate to you at some point that that's something that we're interested in doing. Does this require a reopener with the labor unions? And have you started any of those discussions, or is it just, let's have initial conversations with the board first?
So we're hoping to get this approved next Tuesday, the 12th, and it'll be implemented in the wage scales on January 1st. And we have gone to the unions and we have secured their approvals, and there's letters of agreement that are in the works between the two. In fact, our attorney, Lizzie Mills, is working on those with HR, and those actually will be signed before. I sent an email to council last week and said, what exact steps do you want to happen here in order? And she was pretty clear she'd like to have the letters of agreement, letter of understandings completed before it's approved by the board. So we will have those in place before the meeting on the 12th.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other board members? Clerk Guthrie?
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. So that includes the new wage scale for the 13% increase that'll be before the board at the next meeting.
The letters of agreement, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, the new wage scale will be in there.
For you to look, or?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yes, yep, yes, for sure. Yeah, and when we take a look at recruiting and keeping this community safe, which is the number one thing I think of in the morning and the last thing I think of when I go in, that is what we're here for. And we take a look at now what we're offering out to potential candidates to get to Treasurer DeShane's question. We now have a defined benefit pension, we have a defined contribution pension, dollars for health care, fully paid medical health care premiums, about a 90% paid on your HSA payment, and the highest wages in the area. And we are improving our facility. Our police station needed some TLC for sure, and it's received it over the last, 14 months. So when you add all that together, and we've got great leadership in our police department. When you meet Chief Grillo, when you meet the people on our team, Captain Crane and Chief Grillo and Chief Hamill and all, we have the people who are not only going to, we have the financial incentives, but we have the people there that are going to draw people here too. You got to have the right people. You can't just have the financial part of it and a nice building. You got to have people that'll be magnetic to attract people here. And we have it all. And I expect this plan to work if approved by the board. Thank you.
Anyone else? I have a couple of questions. Don't go away, Mr. Walsh. No, whomever has the information. I'm a little confused about the recruitment pay. So I don't know who's getting these bonuses. Would you explain to me how much goes to the recruiter and how much goes to the officer?
Okay. So any of our 165 team members can be the recruiter now.
Right.
Once this is approved, okay? And they're the only ones who receive the person. If I have, well, it wouldn't be me because I wouldn't, but anyone else, let's say Niall Nunn up in engineering has a cousin's brother's cousin who works for Waterford Township, because we know everyone wants out of Waterford. And that person wants to come and is relocating to Lansing. Niall goes, he finds out that Lisa wants to come here from Waterford Township. He goes to Chief Grillo, he signs a form that I am the recruiter for Lisa Smith out of Waterford, and he receives the total $5,000 in steps.
Okay.
In steps. Once they sign, once they get through the academy, once they've been here for a year, he receives the total $5,000. Lisa doesn't receive anything except for the entire benefit package we offer.
That explains everything to me. Thank you very much.
I'm sure Niall will be wanting the money now.
Working overtime.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, anyone else? Well, I can say, I think Deborah Guthrie has, Clerk Guthrie has already said she's in support of this policy. I'm in support of this policy. Can we expect to see it back on the 12th?
Yes.
Okay. Then we will anxiously await that.
Thank you all. We really, I know I can speak on behalf of the chiefs. We really appreciate the support that we've seen and we expect ongoing. And we're going to turn the tide on this. I have full confidence this is going to work.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you. The next, there she is again.
I'm back.
Item 13B, memorandum of understanding between, with the Okemos Public Schools.
Yes. Sorry I wasn't here for the last meeting when this was on the agenda. But we have, we operate a lot of youth sports programs, youth baseball, softball, t-ball, soccer programs, utilize a lot of Okemos schools facilities over the years. And most of the time, there's been no charge involved with that. But we go in and we line the fields. We provide the soccer goals, most of the soccer goals at all the schools we've provided that stay at the schools. When it's baseball, we're dragging, lining. We provide all the bases on all the fields we use, provide the porta-johns. And so there's a lot that we have been doing over the years. And then a few years back, they started charging us out of the blue, no notification, they just started sending us a bill. And then I went and talked to John Hood recently, and he goes, well, why are we doing that? So that stopped. But what else is happening is that there's a lot of for-profit, I'll say soccer organizations that go and they look for fields to reserve for their programs. And so the real reason for this memorandum of understanding really is more for priority, to make sure that it's, when we request use of school facilities, that Meridian Township has one of the higher priorities right below the school and all of their activities. The programs that we run are purely recreational. Everyone signs up, plays, everyone has equal playing time. It's a community event. And some of these other organizations are travel teams and for-profit organizations going in. We just want to make sure that we don't get lost in the shuffle. And that really is the main reason for this. And also, and with John Hood, it is kind of, another reason is like our senior center. When when that all started, people are gone now and nobody really understands the whole senior center thing, right? And so now that we're having a change in leadership here in the Parks and Recreation Department, and the school continually has turnover, that here's an opportunity to maybe get something in writing. And it's just a memorandum of understanding. It's not a binding contract, but it's like, hey, I know the schools use Hartrick Park, the school buses for the opposing teams pull into Hartrick Park. When the teams practice for baseball and softball, and lacrosse, and sometimes the football, they're parking at Hartrick, using our bathrooms, leaving the trash. The girls' JV softball team uses Hartrick Park. At the end of the school year, a lot of the classes go to a park and use a pavilion. You know, we don't charge for any of those things. I think it's wonderful that the schools are using the parks. And this is really just to show this good faith reciprocation with the schools in the township. That is the only reason and the only purpose for this. Now, John Hood drafted this agreement, and he also added in there number 5 and number 6. And number 5 had to do with police. That has nothing to do with the agreement that we sat down and talked about. And I see there's no title on this, and it should be like a facility use MOU, because that was the intent of our meeting, was just something to talk about facility use. And so I would say that would be something to consider that we delete from this draft agreement. And then the next one would be number 6 with reference to the senior center. I think the senior center needs its own, it doesn't even need a reference in this, right? And so I think that's something else that gets taken out. And basically it's saying the same things that we do, that we're providing all of the maintenance that needs to happen when we're using school facilities. And conversely, if the school uses our facilities, they've got to provide their own. If there's a direct expense that the school is experiencing, then we will pay that. And the same with us. If somehow they use a facility, but we have overtime for maintenance staff, then they'll have to pay that overtime for maintenance staff. And that really is all that this agreement is for, but it's really just a good faith. We're gonna take care of you, you're gonna take care of us. So I can bring this back with deleting number 5 and 6, I think, which would be appropriate. They had another line in there that I put through there, I crossed out, about how currently we're not using any indoor facilities at Okemos schools, where we already identify in here that if we use the gymnasiums, for instance, on a regular evening when there's custodians already there, there would be no charge. But if we're there on a Saturday, for instance, when there's not a custodian there, but they have to have them there, well then yes, we would have to pay that fee. And that's already outlined in this memorandum. So there's no need to say that we're not using that right now, because who knows, in the future, we may be there. So it's irrelevant. So I think that comes out in 5 and 6, and I can bring this back on the 12th for action.
Board members. Trustee Wilson.
Thank you for pointing out the clauses 5 and 6, because when I read this, I was very alarmed. This is not language that should be in this kind of memorandum. So I totally concur with you that those two segments should not be in this document.
Okay, thank you. Clerk Guthrie.
I want to thank you for bringing this to us. The same thing happened in the clerk's office, where there were no charges to utilize the schools on election day, and then all of a sudden, there were charges. And so that became alarming to our office as well, and we had to continually call to get the charges taken off and to only be charged for the custodial services after hours. So I understand the predicament and the need for a memo of understanding. And I really appreciate the item in here about meeting annually to plan the events and calendar items that are happening to make sure that everything is corresponding between the township and the schools. So although we don't have polling locations in the schools anymore. If we did, I would ask for that to be included as part of the annual planning, but I can appreciate this planning and the effort that goes into this memo of understanding and the need for it.
Right, because we know basically for youth baseball, softball, and t-ball, we've been doing this for 23 of our 24 years probably, that which fields we use, which nights of the week, what time of the year. let's get that, they can put it on their schedule. So when they do get other requests, then they can fit in around it. I can appreciate if they're not quite sure of what our needs are. Somebody schedules it and gets in before us, I guess it's shame on us. So this whole 3 years might be a little extreme, but I'm good with 3 years because we already know basically what it is, and we're gonna meet at the beginning of each year just to hash it all out to make sure that is exactly what we need. But it does kind of ensure that we're gonna get in and get our field space in before some of the for-profit organizations would.
Do we have a similar operating program with the Hazlet school system?
You know, we do with Hazlet. It's not in writing. Not sure if it's one of those, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I think we've got a really good thing going on right now, and I don't really know if there's a need to start a process right now. I think there was in this instance, and I think this is a good start for us. Plus, then it gives us something to, if in the future one is needed in Hazlet. Right now, there isn't one needed where there's an outstanding relationship, and it's these same things. There's no charge for fields. We only pay for custodians. Same exact agreement with Okemos.
Can I encourage you to create same kind of agreement with Hazlet?
I can.
If you don't, you know, with another change in leadership there and or here, you would be right back here trying to do the same thing.
Right.
Another
And
time.
honestly, I'm going to look, because we may have a written agreement with Hazlet. Because when I started 24 years ago, Hazlet welcomed us with open arms. Okemos was a little more of a challenge.
Okay.
And so we may have gotten into one of those right away with Hazlet, and I'll look in my files.
Okay. Was your hand up?
It was. Luann, how are the fields going to be affected by the construction? Because I understand they're going to lose most of the Chippewa fields. How is that going to impact this agreement and our utilization?
Yes, excellent point. We've met with Okemos. They have a plan to build new fields at Wardcliff. And so the large open space will now become multiple ball fields. And they are working on that and will supposedly have that ready for us for next late spring. So we have met, they have alerted us to the situation, and we are, hopefully they get it done, and if not, we'll just have to work it out. And there's some other groups that use our fields that may get bumped so we can manage our own programs.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can all work together. That's the whole point of everything. Let's just make sure we get everyone accommodated. For instance, in the youth baseball program, there's travel teams. The Okemos Baseball Club, for instance. And so we work with them and get our younger kids taken care of, but then also make sure there's space for the baseball. And so since we're in it, we understand the ins and outs, so all the fields get used and the most effectively. And so that's been, we kind of have our finger on the pulse when it comes to stuff like that. So anyway, this I think is going to be a good move for our community.
Excellent.
Any other questions? So you will return on the 12th with modified information?
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much. The item 13C, letter of agreement with the Department of Public Works and Parks and Recreation, TPOAM, whatever that means, union.
Good evening, Supervisor Jackson and board members. So tonight before you, we have a letter of agreement which effectively just amends the existing union contract, which will run from 2023 to 2027. It is a 5-year agreement. There are two focal points of this letter of agreement, one of which is an existing stipend. And I want to start by just saying that the LOA, we worked on this with the union. The union is supportive, so this was worked on collaboratively between the union and myself and our superintendent, Rob McKenzie. So we do have an existing $250 stipend. Every union member, there are 22 union members in this bargaining unit, 2 of whom are mechanics who typically don't pursue this stipend, but they could, if they wish to. But generally speaking, today we're having 20 union members go through this training. It's the NASCO licensing training, so this is for grading pipe, sewer main predominantly. So when we televise sewer main, we need to be able to grade the condition of the pipe. We do have staff in the engineering department, and we will continue to have some staff within the DPW unit who pursue this license. But when we looked at the union contract, it's not necessary to have 20 employees, 6 of whom are working on parks facilities, 2 of whom are working on our building facilities, all going through this training. The training is very costly. So every 3 years, our employees will go through this training. And from the employee standpoint, they're doing it because they want to get that stipend, right? They have a number of stipends in the union contract, and they want to check those boxes to get that pay. And it does provide some value, but really not to their day-to-day job functions. And so roughly speaking, by converting this stipend, which is what we're proposing before you tonight, we would convert this to Vector training. So the township owns 2 different Vectors. We use those for excavation. It could be on anything from a water main break to a sewer collapse to even just setting a fence post. So any excavation activity you can use the Vector for. So every employee, for instance, the new signposts that were installed here in the parking lot, those were excavated with the Vector. So our facility crew used the Vector that day. The parks crew will use it on occasion for excavation activities, and of course, the water and sewer departments use it frequently. But then more importantly, those employees need to be able to use the Vectors after hours for emergency responses. In most cases, with an emergency response, outside of, occasionally we have a leaky meter in the basement, but outside of something like that, we will need the Vector after hours. And one of our Vectors is newer. And so the employees who don't work with the Vectors on a day-to-day basis are still learning the Vectors. And so what we would like to do is convert this $250 stipend to being based on Vector training and being able to operate and perform general preventative maintenance on the Vector. So occasionally, these are essentially large vacuum cleaners. They will suck up rocks, very large rocks, and sometimes those get lodged. And you'll have to troubleshoot the Vector to get it operating again. So that's what we mean by general preventative maintenance, is being able to get it functioning again in the field or back at the service center. So essentially today we have a stipend that doesn't really produce value for our employees or for our residents, and it produces a lot of cost for the township. So when we looked at this, and I'll give the credit to Rob McKenzie, my superintendent of public works, this was Rob's idea. When we looked at it, it really didn't make sense. It's one of those things that once it gets in the contract, people stop paying attention and stop asking why it's there. More or less, that's what we did, and we looked at what we actually do need, because we had been talking about the Vector issue and some of the DPW members expressing the need for training. So we will bring in Doheny to do the training. They construct our Vectors, and they perform preventative maintenance when necessary on the Vectors, so we will have them come in and do training. It might be annual, it might be biannual, it might be every other year. It'll depend on any turnover within the department and the needs expressed by the union members. But today, we would anticipate getting a training scheduled for early 2024. The second component of the letter of agreement is our on-call sign-up. So at all times, 24/7, 365 days a year, we have to have a member of this union serving on call for emergency responses. So if we have a line break, a main break at night, we can mobilize and respond to that. So we do a sign up where you're on call for a whole week. Right now we do the sign up biannually, and that's what's in the contract. So twice a year we do the sign up. Part of that was because when I first came in, we were dealing with there were some conversations occurring about how we should do the sign up, and we put a procedure together which we used throughout the course of 2022, and then we actually memorialized it into the contract. Every component of that procedure that we were following, and it has now been memorialized, has worked great. The one thing is the union members requested the ability to do the sign up on a quarterly basis. It just allows them to plan, they don't have to plan their lives quite as far in advance, whether it be vacations or appointments, things of that nature. Myself and Rob have no concerns over going to a quarterly sign up. The only issue today is that the union contract does not allow that. So that's what's before you this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Questions? Mr. Hendrickson?
Not so much a question, but just a statement that both of them seem like very common sense and straightforward proposals, and that I have no issue with inclusion in their contract going forward.
Thank you.
Trustee Wilson?
I concur with Trustee Hendrickson that these are simple changes to be more cost-effective and also to give people more flexibility in planning their calendars. I mean, this is just really simple stuff. So I'm 100% in favor.
Okay. Mr. DeShane?
Thanks to you and to Rob for bringing these forward and being proactive and approaching these things. And it is easy just to inherit systems and just follow them and then to change them takes a lot of effort to break that inertia. And I'm glad you're suggesting these changes, and that makes sense to me as well.
Thank you.
I have a question. What is TPOAM? What does that stand for?
It's the acronym for it's an overarching union. You give me just 1 second because I don't want to get it wrong. But it's the Technical
Office Workers Association of Michigan.
Technical Professional Office Workers Association. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you'll see that acronym with a lot of different unions. So that's kind of an umbrella acronym that you'll see across different bargaining units.
I've seen it here. I just didn't know what it was.
I was expecting NASCO to be the acronym question, so.
Yeah, well, what's that one?
National Association of Sewer Service Companies. So it's a trade association of contractors that work on public sewer systems.
Okay, let me ask you a process question. So this is a proposal to the board, and once the board okays it, you can go to the union and propose it to the union? Or have they already signed on to it?
Sort of, yeah. They've already signed off, like, from a verbal standpoint. We have worked with them collaboratively, so this isn't something that we just brought to the union. We brought them the concept of converting the stipend, which was received favorably. They brought us the switch from biannual to quarterly.
Okay.
We had previously wanted to stay with biannual just because it used to fall on the administration to do the sign up, and it does take time to get the sign up processed, and doing it 4 times a year does become burdensome. But now with the new process that we put into place when I started, the union facilitates their sign up on their own. They just give us the list by a date certain under the contract. So that issue has already been resolved through other means, so we have no issues with going quarterly.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
I understand the second part, the quarterly sign up. And I don't understand the stipend, how you explained it or how it's written in the memo. And my apologies, it's not as simple for me.
Okay.
I'm trying to understand, is what you're saying, every employee in this bargaining unit is now going to be trained? Okay, yes.
On the Vactors.
On the Vactors.
The township-owned Vactors, and when we replace them, we will provide training for any new Vactors as well. Correct.
Are they getting a $250 stipend to get trained on the Vactors, every single employee in this bargaining unit?
Correct, with one minor correction, in so much as it's, going through the training doesn't satisfy the stipend. It's being proficient in operating and performing preventative maintenance. So it's your proficiency coming out of that training. But we
So they will have
provide-
training and then a proficiency testing, and then they will receive the $250 if they pass both components.
Yep.
And that's
their
every
day-to-day.
employee in this bargaining unit.
Correct.
Okay. And so your memo says that you only need 1 to 3 employees to be able to grade pipe. And I don't know what did you say the Vector? I don't know what the Vector is, and I don't know what grading pipe. So you're saying every employee is being trained, but then you only need 1 to 3 employees to do this?
So the existing stipend today, that for the existing stipend, they have to go through this very costly training, and that training helps them know how to grade pipe. Our point here is that we don't need all 20 employees in this bargaining unit to know how to grade pipe, because that's not what they do.
Okay.
For most of them, the vast majority of those 20 employees, they will never grade pipe.
Okay.
They're
So 1
pursuing
to
that
3
training.
employees will be trained how to grade pipe with that expensive training thing, and then all employees will be trained on the Vector machine, and they will receive the stipend once they pass the test and the proficient. They take the training and the proficiency test.
Yes.
They pass
correct.
those things. Okay. All right. And these, is there a requirement for a certain number of employees to be trained on these SIPs? Is there like a state requirement that we have employees trained on these systems?
There's no state requirements, but we do just, through our day-to-day responsibilities, need employees who do have the NASCO license. But we have those up in engineering. We already have 1 DPW member that's still interested in pursuing it, and we'll have further conversations to make sure that a few other DPW members still pursue that license. We're just not gonna, right now, the contract, because of that stipend, everybody wants to get that license, even though it doesn't serve them in their day-to-day job functions.
Thank you for answering my questions and bringing this to the board and working with the employees in this bargaining unit, and something that works better for them and makes their job more efficient, and for helping me understand this language in the memo. I appreciate it.
So, seeing no further questions, I presume that you're prepared to bring this back in 2 weeks?
Yes.
No, actually, in 1 week.
We will bring this back in 1 week, and we do appreciate the board's consideration, and the timing is just right, because we're about to start a new year with new signups and new stipends.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have now come to item 14, comments from the public. No. We come to item 15, other matters and board member comments. I have one. Mr. Walsh, I hope we can ask for, I would just like to have the numbers that came with the public safety report tonight added to the packet. So
Yes, you'd like the PowerPoint added in the next
the
agenda,
slides,
next
yes,
packet.
yes, with the real numbers.
Absolutely, and the wage numbers will all be in there for the next
Okay,
meeting.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, no other board member comments or matters? And we stand, I need a motion, Miss
Past
Trustee.
supervisor?
Yes, yes.
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second? Okay, all in favor of the motion to adjourn?
Treasurer DeShane supported. Is that who you recognized as the
Yes,
support? Okay.
yes, Treasurer DeShane.
Thank you. Emily needs that for the minutes.
Yes, right. Yes,
Thank you.
Second. No, I get to going sometimes. All in favor of the motion to adjourn?
Yes. Yes.
Opposed, no? Chair votes yes. Thank you all very much.
Lord knows we can't put.